Hello, we are Group 8, and this is our video about cultural dimensions in workplaces. We will discuss what a workplace would look like with different levels of Hofstede's 5 cultural dimensions. Examples will be given, and they are very generalizing, which means that a workplace does not have to look like or be like in the examples.
To get a short overview over Hofstede's dimensions, on the left side you can see the lower spectrum, and on your right side the more extreme version of his dimension. During this video you will get a deeper view of each those dimensions.
There are some key differences between small and large power distance in a workplace. In a workplace with a high power distance, it is common that there are rules and rituals developed to maintain and strengthen the status relationship among the employees. Superiors and subordinates consider each other as existentially unequal, and the hierarchical system is based on this existential inequality. In a large power distance workplace, there are often a wide salary range between the top and the bottom of the organization, and subordinates expect to be told what to do and are often blamed for things going wrong. Status symbols are popular, and older superiors are often more respected than youngers. Workplaces with a lower power distance minimize rules and means that the hierarchical system is just an inequality of rules that are established for convenience. Roles may be changed over time, and younger superiors are often more respected than older ones. Privileges and status symbols are not that appreciated, and the salary range between the top and the bottom of the organizations are narrow. In a workplace with low power distance, subordinates expect to be consulted before any decisions that affects them are made. There are no obvious advantage or disadvantage with the differences between workplaces high or low in power distance. It is depending on who you are and what you prefer. There is no research evidence of systematic differences in effectiveness between organizations large in or small in power distance. It is more about how they may implement tasks in different ways. The important thing is for management to use the strength of the local culture.
Employed persons in an individualistic culture are expected to act according to their own interests, and work should be organized in such a way that this self-interest and the employer's interest coincide. In the individualistic culture, the employees put loyalty to themselves and their families ahead of the company and the work group, and they like to have independence as opposed to doing things with others. This is important in an organization because individualists will not always be pressured into going with the group, and they are not afraid to put their ideas out in the open. In the collectivist culture, an employer never hires just an individual, but rather a person who belongs to an in-group. The employee will act according to the interests of this in-group, which may not always coincide with his or her individual interest. Self-effacement in the interest of the in-group belongs to the normal expectations in such a society. Often earnings have to be shared with relatives. The hiring process in a collectivist culture always takes the in-group into account. Collectivists are concerned on how they may appear to others and try not to lose face or cause others to lose face. This is very important in an organization because collectivist is good at working with others, and this is good for big projects in work groups.
Let's move to the next dimension, masculinity and femininity. This dimension focuses on how extent to which a society stress achievement or nurture. Masculinity seems to be the trait which emphasizes ambitions, acquisition of wealth, and differentiated gender roles. Femininity seems to be the trait which stress caring and nurturing behaviors, sexuality equality, environmental awareness, and more fluid gender roles. To get a brief idea what it means in a business context, masculinity of an organization operates competitively, defeat competition, versus femininity, which is more modest, compassion for completion. In a workplace, High masculinity companies are most common in nations like Japan, Australia, Venezuela, Italy, or Mexico. They have in general a higher gender wage gap and fewer women in management. Employees are career-driven and strive for higher payrolls. Money and material things are very important, and their work is the center of life. In such companies, the economic growth has the highest priority, and rising conflicts are getting solved through power, force, or law. In contrast, low masculine or feminine companies are more common in Scandinavia, Thailand, or Yugoslavia. The gender wage gap is smaller and they have a higher women's quota in the management positions. The employees are striving more for a good work-life balance with the preference for fewer working hours instead of a higher payment. The general quality of life and social relationships are also more important than money or material possesses. Work is only seen as necessity to live by. The protection of a positive work environment like transparent, open communication, work-life balance, training and development, or a strong team spirit has a higher priority than in masculine working places. Rising conflicts are getting solved through negotiation instead of putting pressure onto the employees. To conclude, neither of those working places are perfect, and most companies are in the middle of those two dimensions. Masculine working places might achieve a higher turnover in long term, but their general well-being as an employee has to suffer under those conditions. On the flip side, feminine working places pay more attention to their employees and sees them as the most important factor of the company. It's more social-driven than just to earn the highest possible output.
Then we come to the next dimension, which is uncertainty avoidance. First, I want to give a short definition of this dimension. Matsumoto describes uncertainty avoidance as the degree to which different societies and different cultures develop ways to deal with stress of uncertainty. The rate of uncertainty avoidance is high in countries such as Portugal, Japan, and Greece, and low in countries such as Sweden, Denmark, and Singapore. Next, I want to give a few examples how do the respective characteristics in a workplace look like. For a workplace which has a low level of uncertainty avoidance, it is characteristic that there are conflicts in the organizations. Decisions are questioned and discussed. Employees want to present their own opinion. Another characteristic for a workplace that is low in uncertainty avoidance is the preference of the employees for broad guidelines. They want to work on their own, make own decisions, and do not want to be told what to do step by step. Furthermore, employees do not hesitate to change their employers. They want to work where the conditions for them are the best. They know what they can do and know what they feel if they will find another job. Moreover, employees low in uncertainty avoidance are stronger motivated to achieve their objectives. In contrast to this, in companies high in uncertainty avoidance, conflicts are not desirable. As well as the employees require clear instructions. The bosses make all decisions on their own and tell employees what to do and how to do. The decisions are accepted without questioning. That means that the employees just fulfill their job that they should do. In addition, the employees have the tendency to stay with their employer for a long time, sometimes for a lifetime. Furthermore, when the level of uncertainty avoidance is high, the achievement motivation is low. In conclusion, you can say that employees with a high level of uncertainty avoidance just want to fulfill their job. They do not strive to find their purpose in life. They need clear instructions and do not want to discuss the decisions of their bosses. On the other hand, employees low in uncertainty avoidance want to realize their own ideas, so they only need broad guidelines. They want to achieve their goals, and for that they do not hesitate to change their employer and to conflict in their organization.
Organizations working with this perspective are more focused on tasks that is related to the past and how that can be implemented to the workplace today. For example, an organization has used the same computer system through all years, and it has been working fine. Therefore, they continue working this way and see no reason why to upgrade it. If we instead were to look at a management or leadership level, the primary focus is on tasks that can solve the problem right here and right now. Whatever the solution is, it may cost what it costs, as long as the problem is being solved. And if we were to look at the pros from this perspective, we can see that manager and employees knows how to cope and act in specific situations regarding how they have acted before in similar situations from experience. We can also see that these organizations in generally may be more able to change the structure or task because of demands and trends from the outer world, since the structure and guidelines are not solid from a future perspective. The cons are that, for example, it is less economical, since these organizations work to solve their problem right away without really understanding nor solving the problem to avoid it in the future. Regarding this, it can also be difficult from this perspective to know how to act when new problems or situation appears, where there is no clear guidelines to follow. Another one is that focusing on quick results will eventually escalate to a stressful work environment, which most likely will result in stressed employees and sick absence. Organizations working with this perspective are more focused on tasks that is related to the future and how that can be implemented to the workplace task today. For example, what can we do with the information or the solution to a specific problem to avoid it again in the future? Long-term management and leadership compared to short-term are more focused on the whole organization's participation and wellness. Opinions and ideas are welcome, knowledge is shared, and everyone is working towards a common goal that they set together. As an employee, you are informed and involved about the future, the structure as well as the changes within the organization. The pros from this perspective are following. Tasks and strategies are more depending on the circumstances and within that specific context and are more flexible. These organizations tend to look for new ways to effectively solve problems. They are curious and want to improve and develop their competences as well as knowledge. There is also a clear and well-planned economical budget that the organization can rely on from this day forward. And if we instead were to look at the cons, we can see that these organizations are more vulnerable when there are rapid and fast changes, as well as adapting to these, since the site is focused on the future. Therefore, the future perspective also can result in blindness and forgetting about important aspects that happens right now. Another con is also that organization may try to invent the wheel again. With that said, trying to invent or come up with a solution and ideas that already exist.
Conclusion. You can predict if a person will fit into a certain organization if you know his or her personality, cognitive abilities, cultural background, and what position he or she will be given. But how Hofstede's cultural dimensions should be balanced to get the perfect workplace in general is almost impossible to tell. This is because it depends on so many things. Persons with different personalities and cultural backgrounds will have different preferences in some aspects of the dimensions. Also, what position in the organization that you're viewing from will most likely give different answers. What the perfect organization look like is therefore very individual.